For more than a millennium, science has been a cornerstone in the lives and culture of the people of the islands of Hawaii. Over 1,000 years ago, the first people arrived on the lush Hawaiian archipelago. These Polynesian sailors came from the west and from the south, having already explored many of the other islands scattered across the southern Pacific Ocean. They came on expertly crafted wooden voyaging canoes and used the stars for navigation. But despite their inviting appearance, these beautiful Pacific islands presented a considerable challenge. In addition to unpredictable volcanic eruptions on the Big Island, Hawaii is often afflicted with earthquakes and tsunamis. Furthermore, because of the growing layer of volcanic rocks, metals were inaccessible to ancient Hawaiians. Therefore, they were limited to tools made of stone, bone, and obsidian. Even the rich flora was in some sense a mirage. Many fertile valleys lacked access to the fresh water necessary for agriculture. Fortunately, the newly settled Polynesian seafarers were strong, clever, and well prepared. They developed incredible craftsmanship and engineering prowess using the materials available on the islands. Also, from their former homes, they had brought the necessary comestibles for their survival: taro, sweet potato, bananas, arrowroot, and breadfruit, as well as pigs, chickens, and dogs. Other crops were brought for use in dyes, cloth, sandals, musical instruments, and serving plates. To nourish all of these plants and animals, the ancient Hawaiians established a complex system of irrigation channels called auwai, which involved adjustable stone dams directing cool river water through plots of farmland. These lo'i, or taro terraces, were expertly designed to minimize water wastage. They locked in water with stone or dirt walls and sugarcane and coconut leaves plastered into the ground. In some areas, however, water was not so readily available. Therefore, Hawaiians collected condensation from caves, dew from plants, and water from undersea freshwater springs. Unlike other Polynesian cultures, which were centered around the canoe and its potential for fishing and voyaging, early Hawaiian society was primarily agricultural. The staple food was taro in the form of poi, but this was a particularly thirsty crop. Combined with their limited natural resources, especially fresh water, this led to an extreme dependence on and reverence toward the land. This is especially apparent in the ahupua'a, or province-esque divisions of Hawaiian land. Each sector had access to every island biome and their associated resources. They had a section of sea for fishing, of valley for farming, and of mountain for gathering wood. Although the exact distribution of land varied between Hawaiian rulers, the people maintained access to their sacred land. Big changes came to the islands in 1778. For the first time, Europeans arrived in Hawaii under the command of the British captain James Cook. Although Cook himself had an extremely limited impact, his rediscovery of Hawaii opened the lands to exploration, or more accurately, exploitation, by other Europeans and Americans. Over the next century, traditional Hawaiian culture was diluted by the arrival of American and European traders, whalers, and travelers, who brought with them their schools, homes, churches, and Western society. Meanwhile, tens of thousands of Asian immigrants came to work in the sugarcane and pineapple plantations. But as the population of foreigners increased, the diseases that they carried ravaged the native Hawaiian population. In 1778, when Europeans first arrived, there were 300,000 Hawaiians on the islands. By the end of the 19th century, that figure had dropped by roughly 85% to around 40,000 natives. Native Hawaiians were no longer the majority in their own land. One irreversible effect of the westernization of Hawaii was the transformation of the native Hawaiian religion. Initial perceptions of white explorers as akua, or gods, pushed native women to break their kapu, or taboo, in order to dine and mate with Europeans. At the same time, the astronomical native death toll caused by European diseases led native Hawaiians to question their gods. Together, these two factors pressured the kapu system until it broke, with the drunken king Kamehameha II ending the practice in 1819. Although the kapu was misogynistic, it was part of the religious-political structure that held Hawaii together. Without the rules associated with the old system, Hawaii was left vulnerable to American and European intervention. After American missionaries arrived on the archipelago in 1820, a Hawaiian Christian religious blend emerged from the ashes. For decades, Hawaii was but a small cog in the ever-expanding American trade empire. The economy on the archipelago was primarily based on the cultivation of sugarcane. But with the weakening of the native government, the United States government supported an 1893 overthrow of the Kingdom of Hawaii. This was followed by annexation as a territory in 1898 and by statehood in 1959. The culture and beliefs of native Hawaiians had long been marginalized under this system. However, some natives maintained their worship of the old gods, even in spite of religious bans. In a reflection of Hawaiians' intense reverence for nature, this pantheon embodies various aspects of the natural world. Hawaiian deities include Kamohoali'i, the shark god, Namaka, an ocean goddess, Lono, the god of rain and the harvest, and Pele, the revered goddess of the volcano. Out of respect for Pele and her awesome power, the volcanoes on the Big Island of Hawaii are seen as sacred land by native Hawaiians. But in 1982, Western influences sought to commit the ultimate act of sacrilege against the goddess Pele. To supply power for the people of Hawaii, it was planned that geothermal wells would be driven into the crater of Kilauea, the active volcano on the Big Island and the surmised private place of Pele. Many native Hawaiians were furious, seeing this as an act of rape against the goddess they so respected. Despite their protests, however, the wells were drilled. The minority native population was powerless to respond. Instead, it seemed that Pele took her revenge. Mere weeks after the geothermal project was completed, Kilauea erupted for the first time in nearly a century. The violent eruption lasted 35 years and had a total output of more than 1 trillion gallons of lava. A major goal of the modern Hawaiian state is to source 100% of its energy from renewable means by 2045. The thought process behind this, of course, is to protect Hawaii and the rest of the natural world for generations to come. But perhaps, after such an earth-shaking geologic event, the perspective of many natives becomes more clear. How can we be sacrificing our sacred earth in order to protect it? Modern Hawaiian culture is primarily influenced by the unique blend of Western and native values that originated in the early 19th century. Many natives converted to Christianity when the missionaries first arrived, and they passed their devout beliefs down the generations. Ms. Lois, a native Hawaiian and a resident for nearly a quarter century, describes her upbringing in Hawaii, defined by a commitment to education, Christianity, and Hawaiian values.
I've heard it said, educate a man, you educate a man. Educate a woman, educate a family. My mom was a committed grade school teacher at Aina Haina Elementary School, and she always modeled learning. As an example of her effect on me, I remember a kid saying to my mom, "How come you speak so good?" My mom replied, "You mean, why do I speak so well?" So she was always teaching.
From the beginning, this strong influence of education was amplified by a connection to Christianity.
Keali Ikua Aina, our great-grandmother, became a strong born-again believer. She was so committed, somehow she sent 3 of her sons to Fort Wayne Bible College. The result was 3 pastors in the family and a strong Bible foundation. That base was and continues to be a telling factor in our values, ideals, perspectives, and identity.
These Christian values were complemented by Miss Lois's Hawaiian side.
We value aloha, which is expressed in cooperative, loving, generous care to all. The Hawaiian environment is reflected in the Hawaiian culture. Mainly, Hawaii does not have natural predators. No snakes, coyotes, vicious animals, absolutely absent. And my life reflected the absence of harmful, hurtful selfish humans.
Ms. Kanani, a native Hawaiian and resident for over 30 years, lends her support to this idea.
My values are deeply rooted in the sense of family. We're so close to our grandparents, aunties, uncles, and cousins that I thought nothing of it when I moved to Hawaii and temporarily lived with relatives. My auntie and uncle, they treated me like one of their own kids. I was expected to contribute the same way my cousins did to the household. We did the same chores, followed the same house rules, etc. Another big thing in our family is sharing. The first time we traveled to Hawaii after moving to Southern California, my mom went across the street and asked the neighbor if they would mind checking our mail while we were gone. When we returned from our trip, my brother, sisters, and I were sent across the street to retrieve the mail from our neighbors and also to give them a couple of boxes of chocolate-covered macadamia nuts as a thank you for collecting our mail and daily newspaper while we were out of town. They were totally speechless by the gift. But people in Hawaii don't think twice about sharing whatever they have. Even if you don't know the person well, we still have an urge to share if someone is in need. 9 times out of 10, if a coworker asks you if you want to buy Zippy's chili fundraising tickets, you're going to say yes, even if you already have a freezer full of chili.
Ms. Keola, a native and a Hawaiian resident for 64 years, explains how this tight familial bond extends into Hawaiian social practices.
We always greet one another with a hug and sometimes a kiss. Hone is the Hawaiian word for kiss. Another concept coming into play is the ohana dinner or family get-togethers our culture enjoys so much.
At a high level, the small island communities have developed into a large family-like structure. By Hawaiian standards, everyone on the islands is family and deserves to be treated like a loved one. The land and nature are no exception to this universal love. Ms. Keola explains this.
Our bond with and respect for the nature and the land is deeper. For example, tourists visiting Haleakala have taken rocks, disturbed the silver sword plant, or hurt the nene geese. This would be outrageous to any Hawaiian. Hawaiians are very spiritual and see our lives as interrelated to nature.
So what happens when Native Hawaiians, a peaceful, familial, and nature-loving people, are confronted with a threat to the islands they call home? With the unveiling of plans to build a brand new 30-meter telescope on the sacred peak of Mauna Kea, centuries of history and cultural development came to a head.
For too long, Native Hawaiians have felt that they've been denied a voice or a seat at the table. Still hurting from the overthrow of the royal monarchy in 1893, there are many Native Hawaiians who don't consider themselves U.S. citizens, and rather they identify themselves as citizens of the Hawaiian Kingdom. They don't feel that people from outside of Hawaii, or those without lineal or cultural descent, should be telling Native Hawaiians how Mauna Kea should be used.
As a result, natives united into a vast group called the Kukiai Mauna, or Protectors of the Mountain. The LA Times states that, in a symbolic act of traditional Hawaiian love, Native police officers ordered to arrest the peaceful protesters performed honi, a touching of foreheads and noses, before gently handcuffing the kiai. To be complete, not all Native Hawaiians opposed the construction of the telescope.
Many Western-trained Hawaiians, especially those in the science field, support the telescope.
The argument for constructing the telescope on Mauna Kea is rooted once again in the geography of the mountain. The proposed 30-meter telescope would sit nearly 14,000 feet above sea level and far from the light and air pollution of major cities. The skies above the mountain are especially dry and clear, allowing for exceptionally detailed astronomical studies. In the end, we find a dueling of science against science. American and European astronomers, born and raised with their eyes to the heavens, long for this potential window into the origins of the universe. But perhaps it is the Hawaiian respect for nature that has maintained Mauna Kea as such a pristine place for astronomy. They preserved the sacred land to the best of their ability, and even now, a strict lighting law protects the night sky from light pollution. This doesn't have to end with hurt and conflict. It's not fair for the state government and foreign astronomers to ignore the Native Hawaiian perspective, But at the same time, it's not realistic to give the natives full control over everything that happens on the islands. Miss Kanani puts it best.
Native Hawaiians should be at the table because they deserve to be there as the host culture. But they also need to be willing to listen to others, the same way that they would like to be listened to.
For now, with the 30-meter telescope, perhaps there is another solution. The Canary Islands in Spain have a similar site on a mountain on an island. Only those mountains are not sacred. As we look to the future, we should take to heart what the Hawaiians seek to teach us. The earth is the mother of all things, and we must respect and protect her.